There's a couple like hidden names that are just coming up as the phones, so maybe, I don't know.
All right. Well, it'll be recorded, so and we'll upload it to the YouTube later. But thanks so much for doing this on short notice. I thought we should do it as soon as possible, just in case you're not able to get back to your studio for a little bit. But yeah, so Aaron and I met in undergrad at the University of Minnesota, and I moved to New York shortly after that, and then Aaron has been in Chicago for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
Um, and could you like say a little bit? So you started as a resident at Lil Street. Could you explain a little bit about that and like what you're doing there now?
Yeah, for sure. So I started at Lil Street doing the residency program, and it was kind of like last ditch, long shot, because it has like a pretty big reputation as far as like residencies and kind of like just getting out of undergrad. I knew it'd be really competitive, but it actually kind of came through a little bit of just like kind of being in the right place at the right time. I had applied and then met the owner like within like 2 weeks after.
Mhm.
And it kind of felt right. I was able to like, look, this is me. This is what I do. And so it kind of like felt really right. But at the same time, I applied for the Northern Clay Center like maintenance janitor job. So I had to like kind of pick, but I really wanted to just go for the art. Um, so the Lil Street one, I was offered it, and I really went to just focus on making. And that was my goal. And then when I got here, I realized how much I was able to teach. So I
Mhm.
quickly was kind of like shifting and just kind of writing syllabuses and just trying to stay busy in the studio. But kind of the first 3, 4 months was really weird in the studio. I mean, feels decent at the time, but small little pots, kind of just like weird things. But the teaching really kind of kickstarted my I don't know, my fuel, kind of got my fire burning again. The residency program, you got to teach. At first I was just doing 2, and then it went to 3, 4, and then I was doing 5 classes every time I was able to get another one.
That's a
um,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, and it like got to the point where it was awesome, and that really wasn't part of the exchange. That was just getting paid 1099, pay half of it back to the friggin' state after, but whatever. It feels really good in the moment. And then the work exchange was, I was in charge of like low fire glazes and stuff, and then we had to fire the big gas studio kiln 3 times a month.
Hmm.
So that, that's 3 12-hour days a month. That's where a bulk of your work is coming in. Like, but for me, it was amazing. Like, I tried to just keep firing when it was done because I missed it. Like, those days were kind of the best days for me. You could get a good studio day, and then you could really get to mingle with the community because you're down there, and everyone knows how it is firing a kiln. It's like sometimes it's the sweetest thing, sometimes it's the last thing you want to be doing. So little
So
conversations kind of dope like that.
Aaron, really quick, can you just talk about like what Lil Street is? It's in Chicago. Um,
Yeah, totally cut me off. Like I had practiced trying to keep conversation flowing and stuff, so totally cut me the way off.
well, I think like one big thing, because a lot of the people that are tuning in are going to be people from like the from Brooklyn Clay and from New York in general. And I think that like our community has less of an understanding of places like these older ceramic places that have really been like giants in the field, like Lil Street and like Pottery Northwest and Northern Clay, and these places that have been around for such a long time.
Yeah, good point. So Lil Street is quite incredible as far as like reaching a community. Lil Street is a 3-story tall brick 100-year-old building with like a lot of history inside the walls and out, and it actually moved. So it's about 40 some years old, and it started as like a Robinson clay company. So they were like a Continental, and they made clay and sold clay. And actually our reclaimed clay is Robinson reclaimed clay. So it's like has a lot of history. And then it kind of slowly evolved into this like all-encompassing art center. There was like printmakers that really put it on the map, metalsmithing, and then like the ceramics was like kind of the backbone, because that is like Bruce Robbins. He's like really into clay, you know, and he's kind of like a clay fiend at heart, I think, still, and has made clay. And so I think that kind of got priority. And I don't know much about the old Low Street, but it seems like those people were trying to like, beginners obviously, but also figure it out and try to make it work as something else. So it kind of like was home to that like mid person making pots, almost like stretching into the next step. So it's kind of really interesting. It's kind of evolved into that. That's Low Street's biggest problem right now, is they can't decide whether all these people that are kind of like have little bit of careers doing it, like, you know, is that priority, or getting more people introduced to clay and getting them in the doors, is that the priority? You know, it's like, it's kind of this maximum capacity clay place that also has, you know, glass printmaking and all that stuff stacked above it. So it's really kind of just a big community.
That's really cool. I didn't realize that there was still glass and printmaking.
Yeah, well, the glass, I guess, is really small, and I guess geared towards jewelry now. I a little bit miss the glass is on its way out. We still do have two little kilns, but I would say like Kid Street stuff, jewelry, and then like the printers historically kind of got, from what I understand, got the name out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just like roughly as far as like ceramics goes, what are the numbers like? Like how many classes are there and how many residents are there? And then, so there's residents, but there's also, are there members that are renting?
Yeah, so it's pretty sweet. I hope I really get this dialed in, but you know, I felt I felt like I've kind of immersed myself, and I really understand how it works pretty well here, and I really have felt welcomed, you know. But it's pretty much a giant classroom downstairs. That's where all the clay is. First floor, gas kilns, electric kilns. That's where all the classes happen. There sometimes is probably like on average 10 to 16 clay classes a day, maybe, like close, a lot of teachers, but they're running from like 10 to 1, you know, in potentially 6 classrooms.
Wow.
At 10 to 1, 2 to 5, and then like 6:30 to 9:30 or 7 to 10.
That's crazy. That's massive.
It's massive. So this is, it fluxes a little, but last like concrete kind of numbers I heard were like 750 enrolled in the last session.
Jeez.
Yep. And so there's a lot of teachers too, which is cool. You get to meet a lot of people who are like trying to make it work. You get to meet a lot of dope people just in the city, because you have all these people just coming through, and the reach is vast. Like clay doesn't discriminate in any way, you know, and in this way it's a little expensive, you know, so it almost does, like, it's hard to get in there. But I've actually been trying to figure out a program how to get it in the streets, how to like go out with it more, and not even necessarily to get people in the doors, just to have an experience with people in clay and in the street in an urban setting, see how it can be infectious. And that's where I kind of see my role shifting, just as studio artist now, which is kind of dope, because the pictures of me being residents are off the walls. So it's just like, thank God. People still kind of like recognize you and will ask you questions all hours of the day, but it's pretty sweet just to be another member and just like be in Chicago now, just like them, really trying to figure shit out. Like and that was the coolest thing about teaching, is like I kind of approached it as like, I just turned 30. Here's my age. This is, you guys are freaking rock stars in life. I look up to the shit that you do, you know? So it's like, this is how we're going to come at this. And then I was kind of just accepted as just like a voice who's trying to make it work. Which really was like a huge weight off my shoulders and like kind of like set me free. So I almost feel like I owe it to Chicago now, but I love Minnesota, which is, you know, it's a pull, but I don't know. I'm still thinking about grad school and stuff too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's great. It's been really fun to like see your work expand in the way that it has and like grow in that way, which you know, you move somewhere and it changes the work for sure. So like right now, how before the quarantine, how often are you in your studio and what are you working on now? Or what have you been focused on lately?
Okay, so I was really geared towards um, Poetry of Pottery was a show that I just did at Trax Gallery, which Sandy Simon owns, and that's her little baby, and it's was a really sweet spot. So I kind of like was focusing on work um, to try to like fit her aesthetic, but also that like really fed my soul. So it was a really sweet challenge to kind of try to go back and make a little bit more functional, kind of approachable work, while still like honestly staying true to me, but also just trying to fit into that reputation of what the work showed there and like what is interesting. Why do I think this work can be shown in a place like this and maybe a more contemporary space as well? So I really put a lot of focus on just like making for that. And then I was also making for this grid show that I just snuck in right before it really hit the fan. And that was at the Morian. Danny DeBro, U of M alum, who is a current resident there, second year, is
Okay.
curating the Center Space Gallery there. I think that's what it's called. And
That's in Florida, right?
yep. So I actually got rejected from a show there, but then there was a couple people that had like grid stuff, and we kind of were just kicking around ideas and was like, well, what if we use a couple of these grid artists? And then it was actually we took it another confusing level, and we used the word gride, like to gride, like historically in art. Oh, I'm gonna screw this up, but it's
I
like
don't know what that means. Huh?
it's like to jab at. So we were like griding the grid. It's kind of weird, but technically the show is called Grides, but it was about grids. We like to make shit harder than it has to be.
And what was that the work that you put in that show? Is that all pots? Like I know that for the most part, like people that know your work probably know the functional stuff, but
Yeah. So
yeah.
that one was kind of, for me, it was more functional work, kind of like cups like this one, like in front of me, kind of
Yep.
with just like more formal issues, just kind of like surface design, really just like a cup that feels good, but is kind of odd. This is my split finger one.
Yeah.
Um, so it was really about, I used a couple collage pieces that I had framed and matted that looked good, and I got to show those for the first time, which was cool, like on the wall. And those kind of go hand in hand with um, the aesthetic of this functional grid work. So I thought it was cool how I could use the grid totally conceptually about like my mental space, organizing things, but then how I just took this really personal conceptual thing and turned it into surface decoration. And kind of like, shifts around these weird undulations of the form. Um, yeah. And so it was kind of just the work that I felt best encompassed decent pottery. Maybe not the great, I like to say like just above average. That's my whole shtick. But
So
it,
hard on yourself.
what's up?
I said you're so hard on yourself.
Well, I just try to be real, I just try like, cause I feel like at that place, it doesn't matter who likes it, and you can just like be real with it. Like you're just gonna do it because it's like at your core, which is a dangerous way to live, but I'm dangerous, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have some pots picked out that you want to talk about?
Oh yeah, I got them accessible. So I'll go to I like this Warren box is a good conversation starter.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, because I like these, because it's like, this is like my initiation into clay. It was like Isaac Button, Warren McKenzie, production potters, kind of like ripping them out, smoking a stogie, just freaking someone else is picking that thing up off the wheel pretty much. And just, so it was kind of about like looking and making. So this is a pot that I think I'll continue to make. there's another potter, Joe Singwald, who still makes it too. And
Yeah.
he's put his own little twist on it. But yeah, for me, it's kind of like paying homage, and I get to talk about Warren, which
Yeah.
kind of really like lit a fire under me. And now I just approach it in a different way. I don't like try to make it like Warren, anything. I just I like saw a demo pretty much multiple. I was lucky enough to see him make this form many times. So I just like make a squarish box, like inspired by Warren, who's inspired by paddling Japanese, Eastern. Like it goes back far, but this one's dope just because it's like simple, and it's not necessarily like the dopest form. Some of them get better than others. But like this one, the lid stuck, but I kept this one because this one had like muted the colors and then put like a matte glaze over it.
Yeah.
But the form's kind of nice on this one too, but it still has like the trimmed round foot, so that's kind of contradicting.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, like once you make a jar like that and at those proportions, like it's definitely a nod to it's Warren. Yeah,
I know. And cool. So these are I love like talking about these. The reason I make them, because they're cool technically and people buy them, so easy enough, right? But I want like I like that when people challenge me about them, I like that because it's like, I don't know, what's it mean to be original or creative? I don't know. That's why I surround myself by my pots too, because like they're still being made on the shelf, like they're not fucking done. They're not. They're just not. Like they look done, but yeah. So this is like opposite.
Yeah.
But like these, the Americanized T-bowl. It's like, I don't know, I take myself seriously, like what I do, but it's funny, I can't say this stuff without like chuckling. It's like, so it's that like, there's like, I'm kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking on the word. I'll find it.
Aaron, how do you like separate different pieces, or like how do you decide, because obviously there's more work that goes into something like this than the split finger cup that you showed to start out?
Yeah.
Like when you're sitting down to start, do you make like decisions about how much things will be worked over, or does that just sort of happen as you're working through things?
So it's really like 80% constructed in my mind, whatever the day is. I'm like 80% there on my forms, on how the day is going to go. But I approach this chair in the studio space different every day. But I have the conversation with myself and like, what kind of day am I having? Like, how is my information? Some days you're technically savvy, like your neurons are firing, you're in and out, you're like kind of feeling it, whatever it is. But I like how that shifts. Like some days it's like, okay, I just want to punch little numbers. I mean, the type of math I do for my glaze testing and stuff isn't hard, but it's just like, okay, I'm on task and I'm able to like work from 1 to 100, and keep going. Where some days I get to 2 and I'm distracted for 10, I get to 4. It's like, holy shit, so it's like, well, I better shift how I'm making. So those days where it's like kind of looser constructed ideas coming together make a stronger form, that's when I would kind of like work on something like this, where the idea really is built over a series of decisions, and from one to the next, that in between time, I mean, you're curating your next decision in a way. So it's a really intuitive way, but I mean, I have visions, which is a problem of mine, of where I think these fit into a context or into a conversation. How that's my issue right now, is I can talk about it really good and I feel good about them, but I want to get back to not even wanting to know where they're going to exist and just like let them make, where I'm almost back there. But yeah, so with these, the bowl and the idea of making, like maybe I made 6 to 9 or something T-bowls, and then I like squish them when I like take them off the wheels. Some get roped, like this one has a pretty dope rope texture. I don't know if you can see it, but and then I kind of work the rope with the other pattern. And so like knowing that like half of them are going to get roped, I got my pink clay bits here. So I mean, it's very intuitive, but I'm solving a 360-degree pictorial issue that's really formal about material, color, space. And then there's this baggage of clay context and history that comes with it.
Do you do a lot of sketching or like?
Yeah, I do. I primarily like sketch ideas that have already been made once, but I do it off memory. I don't like look at objects and draw. That I would maybe be a better drawer if I would do that. But I draw off memory always, like almost always. It really like changes. So I've had a lot of injuries on my right arm, and it kind of goes with like throwing, you know, I use my right arm. I've had a lot. So very inconsistent with range of motion, with drawing a straight line. It varies all the time, you know. So I'm interested, and I relate that to like drawing from memory, how it's like you just remember it kind of different. So I'm interested in how just drawing from memory will shift the perspective of the thing drawn on the paper. Because it's like from memory, it seems like everything's like top down, or it's like you kind of see things. It's really bizarre. So I like that. There's a lot of weird things incorporated into my practice, but that's one of them. No, this one's kind of sweet. This is just another like simpler one of those. So I definitely like make these two thinking like these are like approachable, like fun to use objects, you know. So it's still like but a lot of them are kind of, I don't know, they're really interesting because in some ways things can be bad about them. In some ways I think I use them to have a part in like this bigger kind of conversation with like the Glaze glob, trends, social media, rather than like be mad at it and like be outside of it. I would like jump right in and like find my own way of these things can fit. So I'm doing it. At first I was doing it with like more glaze. I think I kept one around. So this is like just a little bowl as pedestal, and like, you know, like glazed chunk clay scraps from trimmings. Anders probably remembers from undergrad.
Yeah.
I still got the fucking glaze scraps. I don't know what it is, dude. No, it's so bizarre. Like, but so it's like every once in a while, 1 out of 100 that doesn't get thrown into the slot bucket, you know, it'll like look dope, and it's kind of like just a byproduct of studio process, you know. Yeah. So I still fucking glaze these things. I don't know, but so this was like a way that these were kind of sitting on my shelf when all this was going on, and I was like, well, I'm kind of formed, but it's like coming from a different part. And so I started putting like glaze chunks on them and was doing cups. And I mean, definitely seen like Gus's shit on Instagram too. It's funny now he's right there, but like 4 years ago, it's, you know, it's dope. So like just being a part of that, and but kind of like owning it, not expecting any sort of validation, like being truthful where the ideas come from, and just like, and then eventually they do become yours. If you're invested in your own growth as a human in your studio space, you're gonna have them make them your own. You just, and that's an interesting like philosophical, psychological conversation that really expands out of any studio practice. But that's kind of a really dope one. Oh, I made a virus cup to show you guys. Well, I made a virus cup and bowl. So this was plant virus, like glaze glob virus and clay right now, but virus.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you talk about it because when the glaze glob thing became like a thing in ceramics, I went the opposite way and I just completely stopped doing it. Like it's fat and like you and I were probably getting into it around the same time. And it's funny to see the people that like stuck with it and have really figured something out with it. And even like this has, kind of fits in that camp a little bit, but it does have a different feeling than the earlier like scrap pieces and things like that.
Yeah, totally. It's cool to like hear your perspective, because I mean, I've never chatted with you more than in passing, when you were at the U for like 10 minutes or something, but eventually the minds will come together over time and we'll look back. And I always try to remind people, like, dude, history and the way we're taught always is going to have relevance over your current context because of our egos. We don't want to like think so highly of ourselves and all that. But it's like, dude, we're around dope, like-minded people, and like people are going to look back at like the conversations, like we're going to make it happen. And so I think we'll talk further about this someday, but yeah, that separation of distance, but we're all looking at it and seeing it kind of just through the phone screen, and how that can really take you in different directions and make you feel a type of way. Like you went the other way. I kind of did too. Honestly, I was doing it all on tiles just because the technical side of me wanted to know exactly how to do it. So I was doing it on tiles and shit and not doing anything with it, rather than like, maybe show a couple pictures here or there. But because I thought it looked cool. I mean, I just was writing about it. I mean, it matches kind of this part of nature that I've never met a single person that looks at it and doesn't go like, oh, whoa, that's rock solid. And it used to be fluid. Like I can tell.
Well, especially as a ceramics person, like it's so exciting when you get to figure out some of those things, because it's such a big fluke. Like when you're getting into ceramics and you get a nice drip and it doesn't hit the shelf. And then once you start figuring out how to be able to control those things, it's just such an exciting moment.
Oh, it's so, and we all can probably remember that, that first drip that just like,
So Aaron, I have to say, so you and I, we hadn't spoken for probably more than just short conversations until the other day when I reached out to schedule this.
Yeah.
And, Gus and I often, we either talk about you as Bubby or the happiest potter alive. And right now I'm also just being like totally overwhelmed with the amount of like optimism with like every single thing that you talk about in your work. And it was always super refreshing when we were studio mates, but it's also really nice to hear right now at a time where we're all like super isolated. But yeah, happiest potter alive.
Yeah, I almost always refer to you as that.
That's great. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I drink, I smoke, I try to be happy every day, but it's like, it's, you ride the ups and downs. Optimism is weird, right? It's just like, it's just a goal. Like, why would you want to tell yourself you're not going to make it? So like, it's like a beginning pottery class. If you set your expectations low, you will soar right past them. So I don't know. I definitely don't have my expectations low. Like I try to tell myself, but I just try to like be in the moment. And it's like, oh, I'm so conscious of like how I'm spending my time with my wife, with relaxing, trying to balance between exercise, which I don't really get much, and studio. If you do that to the best of your ability, that's all you can do. So if I don't know, I guess if you can't financially support yourself, you have to make shifts. But like if I'm teaching and cleaning the floors and able to pay my bills, I can just kind of be optimistic with these weird things, because I'm not trying to pay the bills with them.
Yeah.
It's an art studio practice. It's really a studio practice for me is more about like gaining an understanding of self and how do you like better position yourself where you are right now with what you know right now, but without capitalizing and taking advantage. That's why teaching's dope, because on one hand, you could like take advantage of what someone doesn't know and profit. or you could teach them. So I don't know. It's really interesting, especially with like where we are right now. I think we have to be optimistic. I think we have to be very smart. But I don't know. I've been like going at this thing. I kind of flip back and forth, but with the whole virus. But it's like the fact that some government, it's like it's our government, but it's like some people that are telling us who's important, who's not, how to kind of divide, where it's like I go out my door, get in my car, go down, past nobody to get into my space, but I'm not supposed to be here. But like you have all these people crowded in a store, and that's where we need you. Or like Amazon in Chicago down the road has it in the building now, they know, and they're not closing the doors. So you're telling me I can't go to my studio? It's like that's the anarchist in me, but it's like it's a real thing that we have to deal with. And most days up until like talking to Anders, I've been deflated by it. I have not, like, trying to go to the grocery store, I would pretty much be there ready to go for 3 hours before it go. Like I was just like, fuck, like I would start drawing or just do anything else to like make the decision to like go against what I thought I was supposed to be doing. But then I really just didn't know, I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
sort of
talk about it. It's like, get it out. It's like, holy shit, great idea, boys.
Yeah, I grabbed paper and drawing supplies and sort of I've just been working from home lately, but I'm glad you're able to still get in there right now. Are you working on anything right now, or are you sort of on pause?
So yeah, yesterday I got in and I totally went to town and I threw a bunch of parts. Actually, I'll set this down for one more sec.
Could you maybe just like pan around a little bit?
Yeah, I will. So I threw a bunch of parts to make these weird like little pipes. Ooh. So these are just like these weird little smoking vessels. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting to the point where I want to be productive. So these are all just weird wheel thrown little parts. Mm-hmm. So yesterday I was like, Clay, you need to know when you're going to come back to it. So I decided to just I took Peter Ronan's wheel because mine is really kind of crappy. His studio is right over there. Took his wheel. And then I just made like all these little parts. So I got 2 different wet boxes going. Mm-hmm.
I like that system.
Yeah, that's good because if you got to go home, you can just take that Tupperware with you.
Yeah, no, for real. So it's like I like doing that, and I make like these little vases. Cool. These little bud vases like that. And so I can make a lot of things with parts. So like I just build a lot of little parts. And I started doing that just in case, because now this morning, I think this might be my last day here.
Yeah. Ooh, nice tray. Wow. Aaron, do you have people's work that you really like? Like, do you have favorites in ceramics?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got favorites. What kind of favorites?
Well, I just saw that like little tray, and I've been looking at Rebecca Chappell's work a lot lately.
So she's a new like little lust of mine. I'm going really slow, but I have seen her candlestick holders in person like a couple years ago. They really caught my eye and was like, these are sick. Yeah. And then, but like lately, I've been seeing her just places. I'm like, damn, and but I really haven't dove in. I did look at the Airstream, Artstream stuff. Yeah. I really haven't dove in. But yeah, I think I will. Her work is dope. Yeah, I read about Ken Price all the time and Ron Nagel and like June Konenko and like Volkis. I love buying Mike Helke's pots. Those are my favorite pots to buy. So definitely like influence through using them, aesthetic influence. I think Mike passively has like influenced me probably more than anybody in a lot of different ways. Actually, there's a guy on here, Mark Schoen. He's just looking at the way he works too. It's just so dope. And that's about chasing ideas, more or less, you know, like that's something that I saw a workshop of Mike Helke like pretty soon after he did Alfred, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, he was kind of like, he was younger. He wouldn't tell me how old he was. And at first I didn't like his work and stuff. We've talked about this with him, so it's cool. It's totally, I've had the conversation and I always bring it up because it's kind of crazy. Is because for some reason I just didn't like, he didn't tell me how old he was. I didn't know if I liked his work. And I was so into Warren, like High Fire. So I was just like, so for 5 years, I just disregarded it. And then all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, it's about the ideas, your own ideas. And just like, I was totally into like making forms that existed and like paying homage to your teachers and kind of that old school apprenticeship thing, you know, and like selling pots, socialists for cheap, like everybody can have this pot and drink out of it. But so it was kind of through like Mike Helke was adjuncting at the University of Minnesota while I was like just switching to low fire because I knew once I graduated that I would have to do something drastic to keep making work by myself. I didn't want to rely on anybody. So I switched to low fire and I mean, never had big critiques with him. Like he'd come in a couple times, but yeah, I would say as far as like making pots, like that's one person where I still just want to make sure that like every once in a while I try not to look at his work that much right now, honestly, except it's when in person and stuff. But that's one of those people where like if you're chasing ideas, things can start to like look alike and you got to be like sure. So I avoid things sometimes because it's like, oh dude, that's kind of like his thing right now. But as a teacher in different parts of the world, people come to similar roadblocks. So sometimes people solve them similarly, you know? So like there is that weird thing that happens sometimes that people will do something and it'll feel genuine and original, but then they'll see it elsewhere and run from it because, oh, it's not that great. I think just because someone else thought of it too doesn't mean it's like less relevant. I think that makes it more relevant because it's a similar thing that's coming up. But what we have to be careful of is what do we do when we realize those similarities and like how can we differentiate that? And a lot of that is asking why this person is doing that. And if it's about ideas and problem solving materials, I think that stuff happens. I mean if you sat down with like 10 potters and was like, okay, each of you throw 6 forms, I feel like 4 out of the 6 would be the same. It'd be like a mug. I don't know. I feel like you could almost get the forms down. So it's like that stuff happens, and I just love to fucking talk to people. I guess today I'm just ranting like a little.
Well, like sort of what I'm hearing and where my head is usually at on that topic is like, especially in ceramics, like learning is often done through replicating, but to make something your own, you have to add to it. But like, and I used to be really judgmental about work that just seemed to be replicating or mimicking other people's stuff. But there's also like a period of time where, especially like in an apprenticeship type situation or in and out of schools or residencies, there's like, you're still figuring out if you can add something to the thing that you learned. And that's like going back to like the Glaze gloop thing is like some of that work is in that camp, but you've added something of your own to it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm not sure if more is not always better. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's things that I've been doing for a long time that's just like, yeah, this is kind of got to like get out of here. Just got to work its way out. Like it just needs to happen. And I know it, but I can't just like throw it out. I just try to like work the idea to the side. And to do that, you have to come up with better ideas. Like what contextualize it better. Like it's tricky with art, you know, it's especially when you're coming from like social engaging art. I relate it kind of to pottery because it's like they're trying to, I mean, all art really is, but like with visual art historically, there's this like, oh, it's just beautiful, you know, like that's like whether that's real or not, like I have that in my head and it still kind of is always separate of like people understand it as like they can use it, they look at it, or or we're listening to music together. It's like some people, it seems like that basic, and it's tricky.
Yeah. So we're coming close to the end of our session. So I just wanted to remind everybody that's here, if you have a question, you can type it into me and I'll read that out, or you could unmute yourself and ask Aaron.
Yeah, we can unmute self. That would be dope. Mark, let's unmute Mark. No, he says no.
Crickets.
Yeah. I know, we could probably learn from Mark. Dude, he's been doing crazy stuff. Look at his background. What the heck?
It's his work. He's just light and space, smoke cloud guy now.
Oh, it's so good. Well, this was sweet. Thanks for the experience and the opportunity to like chat. And I kind of feel like as a young artist, I'm finally at the point where I can almost start talking about what I do. Almost, like I've still got some work to do, but
yeah, I have good days and bad days. We might we have bad connection or maybe you do.
Oh, was it me?
Hey, it might be us. But
did I lose everybody? Or no, Mark's still alive down there. All right, I can't hear you guys though.
Can you hear us now?
Oh, yep.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, thanks again, Aaron. Yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to fit this in.
That's a beauty.
Whew. And well, I'll have to try and scrounge something worthy of trading you.
Yeah, let's do it.
A lot of exciting
stuff. You guys, I feel weird about shipping. Like, I totally stopped trying to sell work right now, even though people really are, but I even feel weird about shipping. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll do some trades and then we'll ship it when this is all over.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah,
look at that.
Yeah, so I like these kind of like simple everyday cups, and yeah, I feel like honestly, I'm sharing this with people and this is recorded, but this is the moments where like someone like working, just like seeing someone like Mike, and like wanting to pay homage to someone like Mike. It gets tricky when you make very loosely, because then like after a while, there's this weird part where like you might be able to embody something. And that's where I think somebody could get confused with their own, like where their own ideas are coming from. And that's why I still like to work in this way, because you have to step back and reflect, like at the end of the day, always. But it's like, Mike learned a lot from Mark Ferris too, so there's this lineage. Like I went to the U for Mark Ferris. So it's like, there's things that like Mike might do, but that are clearly from like Mark. And so there's this lineage that like always exists too, which as a young potter artist gives you like hope too. It's like, oh, dope. It's like, it's a thing you work through, and I don't know.
Yeah. Cool. We'll save some of those cups. Those are great.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right. Thanks again, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Thanks everybody for watching. I'm actually going to try and do more with Will Street too, so I'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, let me know. I'd love to join. And the members join too, yeah.
Yeah, because I got a collection of art at home that you were talking about doing one at home. I would maybe be down. That'd be fun.
Yeah, cool. Maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye.
Nice to meet you, Jennifer. Bye.
Nice to meet
Bye,
you
Mark.
too. Thanks so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, pleasure. Take care. Stay safe out there.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.